I have been dreading this video. The Future Trunks arc of Dragon Ball Super is, without reservation, the single most iconic segment of its long and winding history. To this day, I still encounter folks that haven't seen a single second of Dragon Ball Super, but somehow know of or have seen Goku Black. Potent in its simplicity, this evil incarnation of a fan favorite took the world by storm, but the far-reaching appeal and clear upsides this arc possesses are not why I am dreading this particular rewrite. No, it's the fact that while so many people love it, it requires and frankly demands the most comprehensive and detailed changes within this rewrite series. While extremely fun at its best and clearly iconic, on a narrative level, its arc features issues more far-reaching than simple character hiccups or minor pacing hurdles. Those are all easily remedied with little input from myself, thankfully. The real roadblocks of this rewrite can be discovered within the logic, or lack thereof, within the story's mechanics. It can be revealed through its flagrant disregard for continuity, and regretfully, its unforgivably painful finale. Today, I ask for your patience as I earnestly attempt to make sense of and untangle a story not even its own creators themselves fully understood. I'm Totally Not Mark, and this is my attempted rewrite of Dragon Ball Super's most conflicting era, the Future Trunks arc. In the original version of this arc, episode 47 acts as the cold open to this story. And in truth, this is still one of my favorite episodes from the series, including Dragon Ball Z. What makes it so special is ultimately what sets this arc apart from every other arc in the series: its genre. Unlike any other part of the show, in addition to it being a martial arts comedy, the Future Trunks arc is a mystery thriller. And that very first episode encapsulates that sense of mystery right away, with Trunks sneaking around the city and the subsequent reveal at the end of the episode. From start to finish, this was a gripping affair and forced us all to ask questions time and time again. So why then did I choose to end my rewrite of the Universe 6 tournament with a scene that blends the two arcs together, thus removing that cold open? Well, ignoring the fact that I've already expressed a desire to tie these arcs together more meaningfully, there's another motivating factor behind my insistence in avoiding the same cold open. And that reason is pacing. This rewrite is predominantly focusing on the anime as its subject rather than the manga. And in the anime, the gang jump back and forth between timelines 3 separate occasions, and with each subsequent return having them emerge from that time machine worse off than the last.
Hold your fire! This man isn't black!
While there's plenty I want to change about this, on some level I can appreciate why they took this route. Returning to the present timeline offered the likes of Vegeta the chance to find greater motivation and interaction with his son outside of battle scenarios. We finally got to see Bulma's development of the time machine progress over time, and we got to see Trunks interact with this timeline's Gohan at an age that I can imagine strikes to the emotional core of his character. Those scenes certainly have their merit, and while I will be taking this story in a significantly different direction, I think my approach can preserve the sense of mystery and suspense the original had with its own distinct flavor. So let's jump into the rewrite. Following their successful outing against Universe 6, Beerus and Whis are ready to use the Super Dragon Balls when, just like the anime, Zeno arrives on the scene, revealing that he was captivated by their action. Where this version of events deviates, however, comes through how he responds to the tournament itself. He deeply desires to host a tournament of power where every universe can participate, and announces that this event will be held in exactly 1 month from today. He takes the Super Dragon Balls as the prize for the winning universe before explaining what the cost of losing will be: death through erasure. Suddenly, things have taken a turn for the absolute worst, and more than that, Beerus now knows that thanks to Goku, Zeno will be keeping a closer watch on their universe, and specifically planet Earth. This is the moment Bulma's distress signal is received by Whis, and they all move to make it back quickly. Because they are so far away, Bulma asks Kid Trunks to quickly locate Yajirobe's energy and fly towards him in order to pick up some sensu beans for the now downed Future Trunks. He explodes off the mark with impressive speed, the camera pans to Trunks' unconscious face, and it's here we now see his side of the story, opening with the years he dealt with the prevention of Majin Buu's resurrection. There will be a few changes made to this version of events also, by the way, most notably the fashion through which Kibito's eventual passing serves the story, and Shin's eventual death. Yep, you heard me, Shin dies. During the battle with Dabura, understanding what victory demands, Shin takes off his earrings before handing them to Kibito. He says, "Use these if necessary. Understand? Right now, the hope of the universe rests on that young man's shoulders." The battle is hard fought. Kibito suffers a mortal blow, but with Shin's leadership and eventual distraction through noble sacrifice, an opening is created for Trunks to deal the deciding blow on Dabura and Babidi, thus preventing the release of Majin Buu. It's another hard-fought victory for Trunks to enjoy, absolutely alone, until he hears Kibito call out to him. Realizing what Shin's death means for the universe and recognizing Trunks' virtue, with the little life Kibito has left, he passes on what little he can in order to protect the life Trunks has sworn to defend. He summons a case. This case contains the earrings Shin took off and one lone ring. In a sign of respect for his sacrifice, Trunks places the ring on his hand and returns home, unaware of the potential power it holds. From here, we can skip forward to the events of episode 47, where things play out as one might expect until future Bulma meets her end. Until now, none of us have seen what this Black character actually looked like. All that's on Trunks' mind right now, however, is to not let his mother's sacrifice be in vain. He must escape to the past one more time. It's their final hope. As we all know, episode 47 concludes with the now iconic close-up and reveal shot of Goku Black. And while I know this will likely be the most divisive creative choice in the video, I want to take a leaf out of Sparking Zero's playbook and substitute Goku Black for Gohan Black.
Yes, my holy purpose is to make Mark's editors' lives a nightmare. Estos Elfin, amigos.
With just how much I've been having to delve deep into the ins and outs of Dragon Ball lately, you've no doubt noticed that I've had to reference the original Japanese manga more and more. Now, for those of you who don't know, back in 2017, I actually lived in Japan for a bit. And in addition to all of my studying, it was the absolute immersion of it all that really upped my understanding of the language. Which is why I have found the partner of today's video, Rosetta Stone, so helpful in relearning what I thought I lost over the years. They have this really cool dynamic immersion approach, which is effectively you listening to a native speaker deliver words and then you match those words up to the pictures. And then throughout the lesson, those words start to, well, become sentences.
Juice.
And over a surprisingly short amount of time, you actually begin to pick up on how the language itself functions. It's honestly pretty engaging because at the same time, you're being asked to speak those words out loud. So you're simultaneously building up your knowledge of the language while also perfecting your accent against a native speaker's. The lessons themselves are nice and short, which honestly suits my bird brain, but are perfectly suited to my hectic schedule also. I can spend 10 minutes practicing on the app while my dinner is cooking, and even if I don't have the time for a full lesson, there's also the full Japanese alphabet for me to study in the meantime. Now, of course, Japanese isn't the only language they have on offer. There are currently 25 languages available to learn right now. So if you're planning a trip or just looking to pick up a new skill, I strongly recommend you give this one a shot. And here's the best part. You can get over 60% off a lifetime subscription using my link in the description down below. Just one payment and you're set for wherever your language journey takes you. Whether for yourself or maybe even for a loved one this holiday season, Rosetta Stone is ready to help you. The links are in the description, the QR code is on screen. Whatever works for you, you know what's best to do.
Within the rest of this rewrite, my reasoning will become very apparent for making this decision, but in short, Gohan's character is intrinsically tied to Trunks' story. The history of Trunks is awash with tragedy and regret, and more than anything, I think the inclusion of this character in place of Goku Black frees up room and possibilities for an ending that doesn't need to rely on ass-pull power-ups or rug pulls to be impactful. It will be the ending Trunks deserves. And so, with that in mind, as we cut back to the main timeline, Goku, Vegeta, Whis, Beerus, and the rest of the gang arrive on the scene. Immediately, Goku instant transmissions to meet Trunks, who's carrying the senzu beans. However, once he vanishes, Beerus leers at the unconscious Trunks. With Zeno now paying extra close attention to Universe 7 thanks to Goku, what Trunks' presence represents for him in this moment is a severe risk, the likes of which they cannot afford right now. Motioning to Trunks being tended to by Bulma, Beerus dispassionately raises his hand. It's the Hakai. He takes no pleasure in making this choice, but he's responsible for the future of this universe, and Zeno is unfathomably dangerous. And as his mouth begins to shape the start of that destructive phrase, resolute and unflinching, Vegeta moves in front of Beerus. Pressing his head against his stone-cold paw, Vegeta's eyes tell the god of destruction everything he needs to know. Cutting through the tension, Whis chimes in. With Zeno's event looming on the horizon, one thing Beerus cannot afford right now is to remove one of his strongest fighters from the equation. He insists that whatever his plans be right now, Universe 7 needs Vegeta for the Tournament of Power. And with that, Beerus and Whis make their exit. Or at least we think they do, but in truth they are just keeping an eye on the events playing out from afar. They are interested in what Trunks has to say and the events surrounding him. As Bulma breathes a sigh of relief, Vegeta remarks, "Where's the time machine?" From this we cut back to right before Trunks sees Gohan Black. This is where the events of episode 48 play out as normal until Trunks tries to dash towards the time machine itself, the fuel from his mother in hand. Instead of successfully escaping like he does in Super, Black could successfully destroy Bulma's time machine there and then, thereby squashing the hopes of Trunks along with the dreams of everyone left cowering on the planet. Muttering to himself in disbelief, while vividly imagining where he wanted to go, clutching his mother's final parting gift, suddenly Trunks is pulled through one of the openings in time from his prior journeys. Now, okay, a lot to unpack here, and look, maybe some of you might not like it, which is fine. In the original story, there wasn't anything wrong with how he got to the main timeline, but looking back over it for this rewrite, I did see what I thought was an interesting possibility to create more tension. You see, in episode 48, as audience members we're anticipating Trunks' departure with the time machine. However, subverting this could create a nice bit of tension through Black destroying it at the very last moment. And so, out of options, we're placed into Trunks' shoes as he contends with the despair of his circumstances. With the tool Trunks rose to prominence with now removed from the equation entirely, we're forced to ask ourselves, how the hell is he going to get out of this? This also opens up the opportunity for Trunks, instead of Black, to introduce the utility of the time rings themselves. It was for this reason I initially left tears from previous time travel events slowly regenerating around Earth that both Whis and Beerus noticed. This is playing with the method Black manages to follow Trunks to the main timeline all the while including Trunks in the mix, which to me is important because it allows me to make one or two significant changes to the end of Dragon Ball Super episode 50. Changes that I think could potentially make the situation more interesting. But how? Well, with Kid Trunks arriving on the scene with the sensu beans he's retrieved, he gives the two lone beans to Gohan, whose arm is still ravaged from his fight with Frost. Once mended, Gohan makes his way to Trunks, using the final bean to resuscitate him. As Trunks awakens, with the visual of an adult Gohan looming above, Trunks lashes out both in shock and fear. From here, he can explain what happened, which impresses the severity of the situation onto everyone. But okay, that's not what people remember episode 50 for. It's Goku versus Black, and rightfully so. It is an awesome fight, and I love the atmosphere of it all. But I think instead of having another Goku fight here, I could give Gohan a chance to stand against his doppelganger. This could of course offer plenty of opportunity for unique character interactions between Black and Gohan, where Black could show that he seems to possess a clear understanding of what gets under Gohan's skin, taunting him, jeering him, and in the process gaining the upper hand. Instead of a dominant performance from Goku over Black, I'd like Black to gain the upper hand over Gohan only for Gohan to then step in. And it's here I want something to happen to Trunks. You see, in episode 50, once Goku starts to gain the upper hand over Black, he was bailed out suddenly by a perfectly timed portal dragging him back to the past. However, because Trunks entered before Black with the time ring in this rewrite, it's Trunks who's dragged back against his will through the rip in time he came from. Taking this opportunity, Black eyes up Trunks' ring and makes a calculated retreat alongside the desperate Saiyan to their timeline. Spat out into the cluttered ruins of Capsule Corp, now back in the future timeline, Black emerges from behind a crumbling wall, grabs Trunks by the hand and says,
"No escapatoria trahidi banya,"
destroying the ring around his finger. Confused and visibly shocked, memories both distant and recent race through Trunks' mind. Visions of his mother dying before his eyes begin to flash. Haunting thoughts of how he found his former master lying motionless color the screen before returning to Black staring down at him with the sadistic smile he's famous for, when suddenly, the world is enveloped in a blinding flash of light. It's Gohan. It's at this moment we realize that in addition to Black making his exit with Trunks, Gohan too gave chase. In the original, because Black was the only one being forced to exit, there wasn't the same motivation. Everyone just looked on with a dumbfounded expression as the bad guy was taken away. But this is Trunks we're talking about. Perhaps someone, maybe Gohan, could make an emotional split-second decision out of consideration and care for his friends, choosing to intervene. It's not like Gohan hasn't done that in the past. Now, I know that this might not be for everyone, but I think it can offer an interesting chessboard for the story to play out on. Fracturing the group in a way that keeps tensions high, grants profound urgency and motivation to those left behind in the past, all the while acting as an elegant means of stopping the time-hopping back and forth business I complained about earlier. Oh, and my personal favorite, it reunites two exceptionally interesting characters, Gohan and Trunks, that can now go on a tense but thematically exciting journey of survival together. One that's in line with Gohan's character and his journey within the story, all the while offering Trunks a spiritual and thematic second chance to make right the events that have haunted him his entire adult life. Okay, whew, goddamn, I am only after discussing my vision for the beginning of this, and how much time has passed? Okay, already this is by far the most challenging writing exercise out of the few I've attempted, but with that said, there is still one hurdle standing between me and the finish line of this video, and as it happens, it is an area that does have a certain level of objectivity to it. I need to, somehow, use the established mechanic of time travel in Dragon Ball to place the chess pieces where I need them for the ending, while trying to make sense within the logic of the series, while, I must emphasize, trying to make sense within the logic of the series. You have no idea how hard that is. Sorry in advance for the next section of the video. Trying to solve the impossible problem. To risk making a long video even longer and more confusing, I'll try to express one of the reasons the future Trunks arc didn't make sense or add up to me, right? In episode 48, when Trunks escaped back to the past, he created another alternate timeline. One where he arrives and one where he doesn't. This is just how time travel works and has worked since Dragon Ball Z. Because Trunks traveled back to the past, Black then followed and ultimately fought Goku in episode 50. This is important because it gave everyone, including Beerus and Whis, the chance to sense his energy. Later, Goku fights Zamasu in person. This is supposedly the event that creates Black. Because Zamasu's psychological state was already compromised, being bested by Goku tipped him over the edge, ultimately leading him to desire Goku's body, not in that way, to enact his grand plan. This is relevant because Black necessarily cannot exist without these scenarios playing out. Now, as confusing as that might be, the problem here isn't Black creating himself, or at least not exactly. The problem is that the timeline that Black is from is one in which he met Goku due to him being investigated. Not before, not after, due specifically to him being investigated. And this is an issue because in the timeline Zamasu is investigated, it has to lead to this. Alright, so the current main issue is the Zamasu from the main timeline that Beerus ultimately Hakai's somehow has to play a role in this story. And so, in short, there is no reality I can think of where he can both be discovered, killed, survive, and also be the Zamasu we see that travels to the future Trunks timeline that is also the reason Goku Black is who he is, and yeah, okay, whatever. So, here's my solution. While Bulma reveals she kept Cell's old time machine from long ago, let's rewind the clocks back one more time. No time travel this time, I promise. And let's make it so that Gowasu, being a big GodTube fan, was following along with the events of the Universe 6 tournament. Inspired by the honesty of Gohan, the valor of Vegeta, and the poise of Son Goku, Gowasu cites all of them as examples of humanity's merit to Zamasu, who seems to be slipping down a morally dubious path of late. In the Super Anime, to address Zamasu's turmoil, Gowasu brings him to some random planet with those weird monster creatures. Instead of that encounter, Gowasu decides to take his troubled protege to Universe 7. Arriving on the world of the Kais, they meet Shin, Kibito, as well as Beerus and Whis, having arrived from Earth moments prior. There, he explains the critical issues Zamasu is having and requests that he see how Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta came to be who they are. From here, Gowasu uses the time ring, guided by Shin, to be taken along a compelling view of the most pivotal events in Dragon Ball's history. The climactic battle between Goku and Vegeta, the exciting adventures of Namek, and the choices made by Gohan, Goku, and Vegeta all throughout. Gowasu will point to the significant moments of virtue in Goku's character, particularly during the conclusion of his battle with Frieza. Faced with the grim reality of who he was dealing with, Despite almost losing himself to the anger of the Super Saiyan, Goku took every precaution to save Frieza's life, emphasizing that no matter who you're dealing with, there's always a chance that there can be a life that's worth preserving. But then... this surprises even Goasu and only further radicalizes Zamasu. Now, of course, this also wasn't helped by the fact that Goku himself wasn't acting with the supposed virtue he was initially colored with. But thankfully, though both Goku and Vegeta had their share of stumbles and moral questionability, one consistent ray of light shone bright for both Goasu and Zamasu to follow: Gohan. Having followed this little kid since his kidnapping at the hands of Raditz, Zamasu and Goasu have seen this child swell with incredible, almost unbelievable surges of power for entirely virtuous reasons. Driven to protect his father, to protect his friends, to protect someone he has never met before. Time and time again throughout this story where Goku has made selfish decisions, Gohan has thrown his own fears, concerns, and safety to the wayside in the name of doing what is right. At least he was, until... even this virtuous little one couldn't avoid ego. Surprised by this, Goasu looks on, but that's not what Zamasu has taken from this lesson. Instead, it's the staggering level of strength and latent potential Gohan has demonstrated over his short lifespan. If this is what he can do at such a young age, imagine what's possible now at present day. Alright, so far so good. Looking at his history, Zamasu doesn't see heroes, but instead validation for his own budding hatred for mortals. Initially disillusioned, he becomes inspired once he witnesses all of what Gohan and his potential could accomplish. And what's more is, as a result of these travels, he finds someone to target: Trunks, for tampering with the natural order of things. Through intervening in the realm of the gods, he prevented the androids and Cell from killing every last person on this planet, as he believes they should have on his timeline. Motivation, plan, target. Great! There's only one problem. So, as I said, the issue with Super's original vision was that the only way Black could be conceivably created was through Zamasu being investigated and subsequently discovered and killed. And so yeah, this is an issue because if he's dead, he can't exactly be the Black we see in the future Trunks timeline, now can he? Thankfully, however, I have a solution. And my solution is Zamasu dies. Thanks, hold your applause. You look confused. Allow me to explain. It's unreasonable to think that Beerus and Whis wouldn't investigate the likes of Zamasu with someone like Goku given what they know. Plus, that kinda needs to happen. It's also unreasonable to think that once they get confirmation that he is in fact Black, that they would just forget about him and let him do what he likes. The time rings of this rewrite do of course function differently than the canon versions. They do not require Supreme Kai nor possessing the earrings to be used. But as Zamasu and Goasu wrap up their trip through time and Beerus and Co make their way to them for the investigation eventually, the most pivotal differences emerge. Now, more convicted in his ideals than ever before, Zamasu uses the time ring of his own accord, this time to see into the future, his future. And what he sees is the inescapable wrath of Beerus, the god of destruction. Zamasu is petulant in the anime certainly, but he's also in full belief that what he's doing is the objective right choice, which is part of what makes his character so terrifying and compelling. So upon seeing his completely inevitable demise, it's conceivable that he could accept this fate and use it as a means of throwing Beerus and Co off his scent while ensuring his zero mortal plan gets to play out successfully. The time rings as we see in the anime come in a box, with a silver one denoting the main timeline and then several others to denote the existence of other timelines. One of those, of course, is the timeline future Trunks comes from, with its Z-fighters comparatively ravaged by the androids. And so, with the little time he has left, Zamasu steals that corresponding time ring and travels to that reality himself, meeting up with a future Zamasu. From there, he is able to take future Zamasu on the same journey he went on, instilling within him 3 important beliefs. Number 1, all mortals must be quelled. Number 2, Beerus as well as the Z-fighters are the greatest threat that could possibly stand in his way, and they are all already dead here. And finally, number 3, If he is to carry out this plan upon the rest of his universe, he is going to require the most capable, potential-laden body possible. And of course, the body that future Zamasu seeks through means of the Namekian Dragon Balls is none other than... Though our original Zamasu eventually returns to his timeline and meets his inevitable fate at the hands of Beerus, the dominoes he set are already falling. Future Zamasu revives Gohan and subsequently wishes to steal his body. From there, he sets out to begin his zero mortal plan, starting with perhaps the only planet that could possibly stand in his way, future Trunks' Earth. Whew, Christ, okay, there we go. Now we've utilized a timeline which Trunks is involved in to provide a villain who inhabits the very body of Trunks' lifelong mentor, one who is being motivated by the mistakes and actions Trunks took as a teenager. Thematically, this Gohan Black is holding future Trunks accountable for the mistakes he made in his past. Trunks already blames himself for Gohan's death, now he has to be held responsible for this evil reincarnation of his mentor. If nothing else, this offers plenty of opportunity for some compelling and emotional character writing. But that's enough thinking for this week. It's story time now. And thankfully, it's a pretty straight shot from here to the climax. Because of the way I've set up the chessboard now, we can actually proceed relatively faithful to the original story. The word relatively is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but I hope you appreciate my effort. When we last left off, Gohan and Trunks had been battling for survival in Trunks' timeline. Now stuck in this world, there's a natural opportunity for Trunks to introduce Gohan to the communities he protects during moments of reprieve. An aspect of Gohan's character that I'd like to explore is the specific dynamic of Gohan's isolation. Having gone back to training following the events of Resurrection F, raw strength is not a variable Gohan most lacks here anymore. It's the support of his friends and family. Gohan has surged in power and even saved the day a few times in the past, but up until now it was always with his father and his friends at his back. All of them there to not only aid him, but often bail him out when he falls short. And fall short he has sort of been known to do. But now, none of that remains. He is isolated in this foreign, hostile timeline with only Trunks at his side. There is no father to bail him out, no Vegeta to burst in and deal with that threat. Only the might and wit of himself and his future companion. As such, when the two finally do encounter Black once again for a showdown, the level of underconfidence and confliction in their plans lead to the two of them being beaten down rather handily by Black himself. A fate that may very well have been avoided had Gohan and Trunks been truly ready for this fight. And so, moments before being killed, Goku and Vegeta emerge from the time machine to make the save. This is where the events of the anime start to match up once again. We can get that awesome Vegeta versus Black battle we love from the anime, and we can also get an immortal Zamasu. That's right, this one has an immortal Zamasu also. Gohan Black, as we find out, took the very same mission-spreading initiative the original Zamasu took, and traveled to an alternate timeline to recruit a potential ally. The Zamasu of the unseen timeline in which Cell originated. And so, once recruited, though he lacked another Gohan body to steal, wishing was very much still on the table. For this Zamasu to have an immortal body was a no-brainer, thus ensuring the will of this plan was quite literally incapable of dying out now. So now we have Gohan Black and Zamasu, the immortal variety, which brings me to the content of episode 57 of Dragon Ball Super, which was amazing, and so this sequence can now be facilitated in this reality also. It's a nice team-up oriented battle that results in some of the best animation the arc enjoyed. But ultimately, and again just like the anime, while Goku and Vegeta's initial arrival offered plenty of hope against Black, once the immortal Zamasu joined the fray, it became too much. They need to escape or they're going to die. Thankfully, neither Black nor Zamasu know where the time machine they arrived in is, and so only one option remained. Making a split-second decision, Gohan once again calls upon the solar flare to blind both of these evil deities. Making haste, they all fly as fast as they possibly can towards their time machine. Firing it up and seconds away from flying off, Black and Zamasu can be seen closing in fast. It's clear they aren't going to be able to make it out of here alive. And so, instead of getting inside, Gohan slams the door shut, with Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks looking on from the inside. He shouts, "I'll buy you guys some time, now get out of here!" As Trunks looks on, all he can see is history repeating itself before vanishing back to the safety of the past. There, the gang regroup, heal up, and as they wait for Bulma to produce more fuel for the time machine, they spend time preparing for their counterattack. This time, they are winning, and Gohan, he's going to be coming back with them. Though Goku and Vegeta take to training against each other, continuing to hone their skills and God Ki, Trunks is left without anyone to train with. His father is occupied and Gohan is locked away in a different timeline. Worse still, he knows that even if Goku and Vegeta do get stronger, it will only be a couple of days worth. Can a few days of training grant them the victory they need, knowing that they just lost a 4 versus 2 battle, and knowing that when they do return, it may very well be a 3 versus 2? As Trunks paces around for some sort of solution, Piccolo takes note and approaches him. He too desires to help, as the fate of his much beloved Gohan hangs in the balance. Though unseen to the viewers, the two pairs train. 2 days pass, and the time machine is once again fueled up to make the trip. The three Saiyans board it and take off for what they hope will be their final trip, to stop both Zamasu and save Gohan if he is still alive. On arrival, their fears quickly appear to become reality. They can't sense Gohan's energy at all. The area they last saw him is littered with dozens of corpses. It seems Gohan couldn't stop them, and perhaps he couldn't escape. As they search the area below, the familiar imagery of Trunks' past can be felt. Unwilling to give up, they continue to search through the area until eventually they uncover the lifeless body of Son Gohan from underneath a collapsed wall. He's still breathing, but only barely. Trunks feeds him the only sense of being they have left, and with that brings him back from the brink of death. Once he's back up, Gohan recounts his experiences from the last 2 days. As it happens, it looked very similar to Trunks' time surviving against the androids, before his mother first developed that time machine. The two hunted him down, with Gohan only barely managing to escape death by the skin of his teeth each and every time. Each fight, by force, drilled Gohan's strength and fighting instinct back into him, but also served to do the same for Black. Gohan may be alive now and even stronger than when they left, but so too is Black. And so the stage is set. The two duos are fully healed, trained, and ready for a final fight. Much like the beginning of their fight against Kid Buu, they all raise their ki collectively, acting as an unmissable flare to attract Black and Zamasu. The fight then commences, and thanks to the additional training all 4 Saiyans went through in the last 2 days, the fight is actually going their way. Goku and Vegeta leverage their honed God Ki to go on the offensive, as the newly convicted Gohan and Trunks launch a similar style of attack on Zamasu. Just as you'd expect, there are team-ups, father-son Gallic guns, father-son Kamehamehas, and all sorts of switching around and teaming up that is just so fun to watch. With Black and Zamasu now recognizing that they are facing enemies far more formidable than they last encountered, they conclude that they must now fuse. And so, Fuse Zamasu is born. And with this birth, so too do the tides immediately shift. What was initially a slow fight of attrition that seemed to be tilting in their favor has now turned into a downright onslaught. Out of options and almost out of energy completely, Goku takes the opportunity to instant transmission away for a moment of reprieve to discuss potential options. And it's here Trunks explains what he has: 2 Potara earrings, gifted to him by Shin and Kibito because they saw nothing but hope and virtue in him. Goku and Vegeta's eyes widen. This is how we're going to win, they think. And with that, Vegito Blue is born.
Maldito v House of Brozo.
As you'd expect, the battle plays out much like the anime. Vegito Blue is much stronger than Fuse Zamasu and manages to pummel him down to a mere fraction of his previous strength. Now weakened and deformed, Zamasu's fate seems grim when suddenly the Potara fusion runs out of time and they split. Out of trump cards, and with Zamasu completely and utterly enraged, we enter the climax. Despite the hours I've put into this story to restructure and solidify the logistics of its inner workings, I know for a fact that there are people who love this story who won't care at all. Simply because people don't really remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. And the Goku Black arc was a thrilling, suspenseful, and exciting weekly mystery for us all to tune in and enjoy. No amount of attempted logic or restructuring can replace that. But if there's one aspect of this arc that even the most diehards are critical of, it's the finale. My hope is that this version I've produced does not repeat those same mistakes. Now out of time, with their fathers drained from the fight, it is now up to the 2 young Saiyans to master their own fate and finish this fight. Their fight! The disparity between Gohan and Trunks' strength is much larger than before, but Trunks has a plan. A last-ditch Hail Mary strategy that can maybe, just maybe, keep the both of them alive. From here we cut to Fuse Zamasu's perspective, where out of nowhere, in a huge eruption of energy, Gohan surges towards him with his entire soul and might. Pouring everything he can into this final flurry, Gohan's raw energy burns like a supernova, utilizing every single bit of strength, potential, and honed skill he has to put up a legitimate fight against this weakened Zamasu, if only for a second. It is an effort that is highly formidable, but once Zamasu realizes Gohan cannot keep it up, then things start to look bad. Trunks is nowhere to be found. It's as if Gohan just decided to go at it alone again. As Gohan quickly begins to fatigue, the fight shifts in Zamasu's favor, until eventually, the only thing Gohan can do is charge one final Kamehameha. And when Zamasu sees this stance, he recognizes this stance. He's seen how this goes in his time-traveling journeys. And utterly confident in his superior strength, responds in kind as he begins to charge his own Super Kamehameha. The clash to decide the fate of the universe is about to take place when suddenly, right as both blasts are prepared to fire, Gohan's aura fades, and the light from his palms gives way to a scream bellowing the words from afar, Mafuba! Through Piccolo's tutelage, Trunks with his hands in the air engulfs this tyrannical god, twisting him in the air just long enough for Gohan to quickly retrieve their prepared vessel and ensure Trunks cannot possibly miss his target, no matter how little practice he's had with this technique. With the skills and efforts of both Saiyans now joined, Zamasu was successfully sealed into this vessel, and now Trunks himself can say that he's finally been able to save his beloved mentor from a gruesome death. For Gohan too, he finally managed to regain much of his fighting spirit and took on the greatest threat the universe had ever seen, without his father needing to push him that last mile. And so finally, now free of fear, guilt, and regret, both Trunks, Mai, and the rest of the survivors on Earth can now start to rebuild anew from the ashes. For Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta, they now are more complete versions of themselves, which is convenient because what awaits them is the Tournament of Power. During this video, I spoke a lot about how challenging this script was to conceptualize and write. And boy, was it exceptionally challenging. So much so, I found myself pacing back and forth in my room late at night, drawing diagrams to try to make sense of and to test for other possible solutions. But by far the aspect I've recently struggled with the most, to an unhealthy degree, I must confess, has been my inability to meet my own expectations. This isn't perfectionism talking, by the way. In fact, you could probably say it's the opposite. I try not to make a habit of saying this too often, but whatever someone might say in a negative light about me as a person or the work that I put out, it never comes close to the way I feel about myself. Whenever I release a video and folks don't like it, that validates my own feeling about my own work. Whenever a video does do well, then I think I just got lucky. It's irrational, but I've always been that way. But regardless of whatever you might think of this video, regardless of what even I think of it, I hope that some of you were able to have some fun with this, and that you saw a video not made of malice or ego, but one of genuine, earnest effort. I'm always going to try to be better. Happy Christmas, everyone, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.